Specter here with Raid and Null today, and we're going to be reviewing the newest movie in the 28 blank later series, 28 years later.
The 28 verse.
The 28 verse. As always, we're going to be doing non-spoiler talk first, and then, we'll move on to spoilers. We all have pretty varied opinions on the movie, so you guys are going to be getting a lot of different perspectives. So I'm going to let Raid discuss on this first.
Yeah. Okay, so, well, first of all, what was exciting about the movie, before watching it, was that this was, the return of, the collaboration from the first one. So it's the same director and writer as the first one. I think it's pretty much the same, crew in general as the first one. And I think you can really tell that. So, just to basically sum it up here, I really, really liked the movie. I thought it was really good. It was shot incredibly well, and a lot of the shots in it were extremely creative, which is reminiscent of how the first one had a very interesting look to it. Because if anyone's ever watched the first one, they'll know that it looks like it was recorded on a camcorder. Yeah. That's because it was shot on a camcorder.
Could I join him in sharing that same positive note on the movie? I do think the movie was shot incredibly well. There were very experimental scenes, not scenes that you'd expect. The whole movie isn't just shot in one specific way. There are just many different ways that the movie shows you what's happening, but not in the same way. So it adds variety. It grabs your eyes.
Yeah,
I remember there's a couple scenes where it looks like it's lagging. And
the 28 Days Later had scenes just like that.
It has very similar scenes where I think one thing I read before I watched this is that the movie was pretty much almost completely shot on iPhones, and you can kind of tell that with some of the ways that they shoot, for example, them shooting the zombies or whatever, or the infected, I should say. It looks really good. It adds this kind of tension because they said sometimes there'll be scenes where it skips frames and stuff.
I think that the long landscape shots are done incredibly well. I do think that there was one instance where the CGI was a little shoddy. And I don't want to spoil what that scene was. It wasn't a very long scene, but it was one of those things that I noticed. I was like, oh, ew.
Yeah.
But the cinematography, I share the same sentiments as Raid. I think it was very well shot.
Yeah. Now, as for other stuff the story, I think the story was really good. Personally, I think it retained some of the same human elements that the first one had, where the actual infection itself isn't really too important. It's more how are these characters are reacting to that. Yeah, and it just the way the story itself develops, what the characters go through, really, really good stuff from me. One thing I'll say is that, and I can see this being an issue for people, I think the way that the movie was marketed was kind of deceptive, because a lot of the trailers made it seem like it was this action movie, when it really isn't. It's more of
it has action.
It does have action, but it's not. That's the main focus of it. Yeah. I would say it's more of I guess a character study, because it really just focuses on 3 characters for the grand majority of the movie. And if you're kind of going into this expecting this to be a heavy on the action movie, you're gonna be disappointed in that regard, at least. But at least from what I think the movie that we got was better as a result of how it was marketed. I kind of compare this to the way Metal Gear Solid 2 was deceptively marketed. When the game that we got, in the end,
we did not get the game that even the back cover of the game is marketing
unless
towards you.
The game that all the marketing sold you isn't the game that you're gonna get. And that's the same thing with this movie. I think don't go in expecting any action, heavy action.
It's not Ballerina.
Yeah, it's not Ballerina. Yeah. I guess just to wrap up my thoughts on it, all the performance was really good. I think the standout performance for me was probably the kid. I don't normally like child actors, and honestly, this is probably an exception to that, because I thought he was fantastic. I really don't have much wrong to say about his performance. Yeah, just to end it all, I'm really excited to see where the next 2 movies in this series go, because I know they already have. Yeah, they already have. They already have one shot that's supposed to come out next year, I think, and then they're still shooting the 3rd one. So yeah. I really loved it. Now I know. Well, there's different opinions here about it, but
you know what? I'll keep rolling off of that. I'll say the things I liked about it. You know, the narrative itself, I don't think is bad per se, right? And like the whole themes of like, you know, we talked about the parent and child themes in the movie, and I think that's nice. I did like that.
Yeah, I've got a couple positives before I inevitably talk about other things. Not to repeat myself too long, but the cinematography, as we mentioned, it was just well shot. It was a very unique way of shooting it, pretty reminiscent of 28 Days Later. I have problems with this plot, and there are some flaws in the movie, so that might unfortunately wrap up my positives. But
so yeah, let's start with the latter half of all this. Well, first of all, before even talking about the cons of the actual movie, there's nothing wrong with this movie being so disconnected from the other 2, but they also kind of retconned the ending of the previous movie.
Yeah.
Where, you know, the virus had spread more, and then now it got back to being contained. Now it's, you know, the UK is just Jurassic Park for zombies.
Granted, like, it is 28 years later. I don't know if that has any part to play. Yeah, it did retcon the 28 weeks later. Maybe they got it a little more under control after 28 years. You would have think the military at that point would have stepped in.
Well, the military had already stepped in by the time.
Like even further so.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
talking about
they
like on a
could have
global
gotten
scale.
rid of the zone, in my opinion, by this point.
After 28
Yeah,
years,
after 28
you think.
years, yeah. Not only that, but they hinted at there being a cure possible, although because France is in ruin at the end, maybe that's not the case, but they still hinted at the fact that there could be a cure.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's enough about the other 2 movies. I don't care for the main character. I know that's something we disagree on.
Yeah. You want a hotter take? I don't care for a single character besides one, the Doctor.
Okay. Yeah, the Doctor's cool. And I mean, I like the blonde guy, but let's not talk about that yet. Let's save that for the spoiler section. But see, with the characters. The characters aren't as strong as they were in 28 Days, and then they also don't have the plot relevance of 28 Weeks. Because see, in 28 Weeks, characters are slightly weaker than in Days, but they have an importance. You know, more importantly, the kid, the boy, he has a pretty big importance in the movie. So like, even if you're not invested too much into his character, you're invested into the part he plays into the plot. Whereas like this kid, I'm not invested in his character, and he doesn't really play any part in the grand scheme of anything. So it's hard to really be invested in the plot as a whole.
I'm going to share your sentiments on that. It was a whole lot of journeying for nothing. I think the whole journey was a big nothing. What I mean is like it ultimately amounted to nothing. It was just a young boy's adventure.
Yeah,
is basically what I'm getting out of this movie.
Without spoiling. But at the core of it, I just found this movie kind of boring.
I agree.
You know, I know that 28 Days and even Weeks to some extent, they're kind of slow burn. But this movie kind of takes it to an extreme.
What's crazy is that they're the same length, but this movie feels longer. But I think...
And like less happened.
Less did happen in my opinion. Now, the only thing I'll say is that I think the reason why it also feels longer is we kind of, with 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, we kind of already understand the way the infection works. But 28 Days Later kind of adds that mystery to the infection. Like, you know, it's a brand new virus. And I think once you lose that and you kind of just get to the point where we know what this virus is capable of, they do one new thing, but I won't spoil it yet. But that's about it. It's very much like The Last of Us.
Yeah, and I think actually that's an interesting point to bring, because I do remember reading that the director and the writer were both like heavily inspired by The Last of Us. I know the writer Alex Garland, he plays a lot of video games, so I think once you see the movie, you can definitely see that The Last of Us is a pretty big influence on this, at least on the story of this movie.
It shows.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's our overall thoughts on the movie. But now we are gonna pivot into spoiler territory. So,
like I mentioned, the journey was a big nothing burger to me. It ultimately amounted to nothing. This didn't better the kid's village.
yeah.
I think he grew as a character. Maybe he became more brave.
Yeah.
It's like I can
sure,
I can fight the infected. I feel much more confident in it. But this didn't progress anyone else.
Yeah, like it didn't really progress. First of all, he failed the mission.
He did.
Which failing the mission isn't always a bad thing, but
he gained something out of it.
But at the same time, it also had no impact on the universe, on the plot, on anything.
On the village. There
Yeah.
was really nothing
yeah,
that
that's true.
he did not benefit his village in the slightest. All this is a kid trying to do what he believes is the right thing, and maybe it ultimately was the right thing. What I mean is, like, his mother has cancer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you don't find that out until the latter part of the movie.
Yeah, which is like, a nice moment, I guess, but she was gonna die anyways.
That's what we're getting out of it.
Yeah.
And even like the scene where his father and him are in the kitchen, and he's asking his father, like, is she dying? And his father's telling him, I don't know, maybe. It doesn't add anything really to the plot, in my opinion. You could have just had him venture off to find medicine, and it would have all amounted the same to me.
Yeah.
Now, the doctor, like I mentioned, that was a character I actually enjoyed in this movie. I thought it was a nice reveal that he was not
crazy.
not crazy.
Yeah.
But in another way, I also find that kind of like flawed. And I mean flawed in that it was very predictable that this doctor was going to be a nice guy. Or maybe not a nice guy, but a guy that ultimately wasn't who they said he was. And it comes, I don't know, it just comes off as predictable. I did think that the relationship between the father and son was not fleshed out in the slightest. And they built it up at the beginning of the movie that this might have been a father-son movie, like the father being the hardened veteran of the infected, and the son having to like learn off of his father. But
no, as soon as he bangs some girl, the son is like, oh hell no, I'm getting out of this village.
Fucking hate my dad.
I hate my dad. Yeah.
And I get it. No one wants to see their dad do that. But
Yeah.
I think all that happened was that he now thinks of his dad as an asshole.
Which, like, yeah,
He is.
But
No, I'm
but
not
at the
saying he
same
isn't.
time, though, like that was the reason that he left the. I mean, obviously that's not the only reason.
He left.
Like
yeah.
this, his decision to leave the village was not a very good decision as
No.
well.
And you know, it's kind of stupid. It's very minute, but him telling like the guards in the tower, like, oh, there's a fire over there. They said all the men need to go. Like, dog, there's a reason why there's supposed to be someone stationed at this tower. You mean to tell me that this guy is stupid enough to be like, well, I guess I better go and leave this kid to guard the siren? I just didn't get a whole lot out of it. It just felt like one big circle. Like, we're leaving, we're coming back, I'm leaving again, and he didn't come back, but they're saving that for a sequel.
Oh, and yeah, well, you know what? If I hadn't found out that there was going to be a sequel, I was actually going to talk so badly about the end.
Oh, if
because
he
it's
would have
so
just
random.
returned to the village and like that would have been the end of it, like, oh yeah, mom died, by the way, I probably would have a lot worse things to say.
But the ending was very random too.
It was
like,
very random.
I know
on
that they
top of
set
it all.
up the blonde guy.
Yeah.
I know they set him up, but it was still so random, and I was just like, oh.
You mean
yeah,
like the guys in the tracksuits?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was hilarious.
I mean, yeah,
That
it was
was-
funny.
it was really
but-
funny.
But at the same time, it was weird.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know who that guy is, right?
Yeah, the kid from
Yeah, the
beginning.
kid from
Yeah,
the
from
beginning.
the beginning.
Which, like I said, that I know they set him up.
Yeah,
but
Well, he has,
that
like,
doesn't make
the-
it any less weird.
No,
when
it
happens.
is a little weird. I thought that's actually funny because I'd say if I have like a negative thing to say about it, it is the way the movie ends. Because the way the movie ends, like it's building up to this moment where like the kid's basically saying like I need to be on my own for a bit just to figure things out, and you have like the music, it's the same music from the first movie, like when Cillian Murphy's character wakes up. It's just really good. It's like really, really nice. And then then you just have this scene where like these like 5 guys in tracksuits come up and
kill zombies, like,
and
for
then
fun, too.
yeah,
they're like
and they're
sport out
and it's like it kind of just takes like the I don't know, like the tension away. I don't know if
that scene
right
kind of felt like Borderlands.
It kind of did,
it's like a
which is like
scene.
it's weird because like everything before that is setting up like this really like kind of like pretty serious but like also emotional like ending to the movie, and then it kind of just like halts and it turns into like a comedy movie kind of. It's like Shaun of the Dead.
That's actually what it feels like. It feels like Shaun of the Dead,
which is like that's just really weird. I was like, okay, and I get it. It's setting up like the fact that there's gonna be a sequel with these characters as like probably major
which is why
players.
I said if there wasn't, I'd be like, this ending is so
if there
trash.
wasn't, the ending would be pretty bad. But I like there's gonna be a sequel.
They left it open.
So
you know, I actually thought like the kid at the beginning was the dad.
That's what
For
I
a
thought.
second, I thought that too.
That's what I thought. I thought that was gonna be the big reveal. Was that like that he like made it all the way to this like aisle and like is part of their community.
But it turns
they
out
kind of
like,
shafted the dad.
That's the thing. The dad like really only plays like a pivotal role at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And he is not involved afterwards.
I think that kind of ties into what I said, like in terms of like how this movie's marketed deceptively, because a lot of the trailers do have the dad playing a major role. Like it makes it seem like he's gonna be one of the main characters.
Another, I guess these are just like maybe nitpicks to a lot of people. The CGI, like I mentioned, there was one CGI scene, and I guess I'll talk about it. It was the deer scene where the herd of deer or whatever they were running past, and I was like, that looks weird.
Did you see? I didn't even really notice anything bad with that. So,
no, I
wasn't paying attention to it too much. I just saw a deer. And
it's not a very long scene, so you really don't have a whole lot of time to notice. But I noticed. I was like, why does that look so off? And I was like, that CGI does not look great. Another thing that kind of looked it was a little corny, or a little campy. When they killed the blonde kid, Eric, Eric, and the alpha zombie, the Giga Chad zombie, ripped his head off. That head looked fake as hell, man.
Oh,
like the face.
It did, but like I don't know. It's
a lot of the actual locations, like besides the village and the doctor's like little skull like shrine area. The whole movie was a little boring looking compared to like 28 Days Later, where you kind of had like more landscape to work with. This is like a lot of greenery, a lot of forest, a lot of ruined buildings. And I get it, it's 28 years later, but it's just kind of boring to watch. It's very much like a Last of Us.
I meant to bring up, since you brought up Eric, the scene that he's in, like talking just casually to the main character, is actually like my favorite scene in the movie. Not just because like one, it's hilarious, but two, it's like the most regular conversation we get in the whole movie.
It is very regular. Like it's a realistic conversation that people have with each other. It was very funny too. Well, like the scene with the iPhone. He pulls out like his fiance. Like the jokes they were making. Like she looks.
Why does she look like that?
Yeah, why does she look like that? She looks like she's having an allergic reaction. There's someone at my village that looks like that when they eat.
When they eat like shrimp.
Shrimp. Yeah, it was funny. It was a very funny scene. And there they go marketing like the iPhone, which was the movie was shot on iPhone. Maybe this was like an advertisement.
Yeah, I think. I do like that you brought up like the whole that scene, because I think it kind of like highlights like how different it is in terms of like you have this character that has like no knowledge of like what the world is like before the infected took over, right? And then you have the soldier Eric, who like lives in the outside world that is, apparently completely normal. I guess everyone just forgot that the UK can be rebuilt. I guess, I don't know. And then you have like these different like conversations, because he's like talking about stuff that the kid has like no idea what it is. Like he mentions like what the internet, and he's like, what the hell is that? Yeah. It just shows like that nice contrast. I think that's like part of the reason why that scene works so well, is because it's like it's like a fish out of water. So it's like the kid's kind of just reacting to like him saying a bunch of stuff that he has like no knowledge of. And that's what makes it so funny.
Do you have any rebuttal to any of the negative things we said?
I think for me, what it boils down to is that like the movie itself is about like it's a coming of age story for like Spike, the kid. So obviously he doesn't know that she has cancer, and that's completely futile. But I guess like that ties in at the end, like where he has to learn that like everyone dies at the end. I mean, that it kind of gets spelled out pretty.
What was the Latin phrase?
For you. Memento mori.
So like everyone dies. We all die eventually. I get it. That was the message of the movie too, is like learning to move on.
But I think like the big thing for me is that like the movie itself is just like him coming to terms with the fact that like people are gonna die. There's not much you can do about it, and I think that serves like as a lesson for him, and that's what ultimately leads him to like I guess grow up, kind of, become more mature
and killing zombies.
And killing some zombies and doing it with some weird tracksuit dudes.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts on everything. Pretty varied opinions here.
Yeah.
But you guys should tell us what you guys think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let us know in the comments how wrong I am.
Or, I mean, how wrong I am. I mean, you can disagree with me.
Yeah, you can disagree with all of us.
Yeah.
You're all wrong.
You're all wrong. It's actually a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. There was nothing wrong with it.
There was nothing wrong. Or
it was a 1 out of 10. The
movie fucking sucked.
It was a 0.
It was a 0.
Well, until next time.